All right, so right out the gate, I'm going to go with the Provincetown Black Flash for my small forward. Because, the small forward position, it kind of requires a lot of defensive versatility. And if you can get some size at that spot too, then that's really going to come in handy, especially during the playoffs. So the more I think about it, the more I feel like the Black Flash just kind of ticks all the boxes, So for those of you that have never heard of the Black Flash before, he was this big, giant, mysterious figure that used to absolutely terrify the residents of Provincetown, Massachusetts back during the late 1930s and early 1940s. For a while there, pretty much constantly, all the local newspapers were putting in reports of this big 7-foot tall dude in a black hood and a black cape that was jumping out of alleyways and screaming in people's faces and leaping up onto windowsills and hollering into people's bedrooms. And before long, the Black Flash kind of had Provincetown under his thumb. All the local children were terrified of leaving their parents' side, and women were scared of even leaving their houses. And pretty much every single night, all the boys and men of Provincetown were wandering around in the street, trying their best to catch the elusive Black Flash. Whew. So, to me, kind of sounds like exactly the sort of intimidating presence and menacing aura that I want on my basketball team, right? Plus, if the scouting reports are true, then the Black Flash also can shoot blue flame out of his mouth and jump 10 feet straight up into the air. And, if what I'm hearing is accurate and Washington is seriously considering starting Bigfoot at point this year, then I'm going to need an X factor like that, right? Like this guy, the Black Flash, he's a serious prospect. Plus, as an added bonus, I kind of got a feeling that he's going to really help me sell some merch and move some tickets too. Because check out this article that I found from October of 1939. According to this, in Provincetown in 1939, the single most popular children's Halloween costume was the Black Flash. Everybody loves a good villain. All right, so with our small forward position all set up, why don't we move on to the one? The point guard. I need somebody here that can really take care of the ball, that can run my offense, that can weave through the opponent's defense, and, somebody with real, good, reliable hands. So I'm thinking the best option here is to take somebody that's just a hand. Like maybe the severed ghost arm of Hallowell, Maine, for example. Just think about that dribble height. Like, how is anyone going to steal the ball away from a severed arm that's way, way down, barely even a foot off the surface of the court? It's just not going to happen, right? Anyway, though, if you haven't heard this legend, the story starts with a mill worker named Eli Wing, who in 1837 had his arm torn clean off his body by the power of a big spinning mill wheel. Eli actually survived the accident and decided to bury his severed arm in the swamp behind the mill. And there, alone in the muck and the black, the arm sat completely forgotten. Well, its former owner went on to live a long and fruitful 100-year-old life without it. And I guess that little arm must have just got jealous or something, because before long it was scaring little kids trying to get a drink out of the nearby stream and pouring water over lone travelers and even punching out the windows of anybody who dared to speak the legend of the arm. So it's a good thing that I'm outside, right? All right, so we got a high-flying super athlete at the 3 and a sneaky little severed arm controlling the flow of the game at the 1. And now I'm thinking that it's about time we grab ourselves a real big, tough, ornery center to bang down low and grab some rebounds and protect the rim and, add just a little bit of menace to this team. And I think I found just the guy. This is an article published in the Boston Daily Globe back in 1886. One night in January of that year, a few brickyard workers were walking home down an old country road when suddenly, there in front of them, stood a man about 3 feet tall, a mysterious-looking dwarf alone in the darkness. Now, the leader of the workers was a big, tough Irish dude named Owen McNulty, And he took one look at that little man in the road, and he took the shovel that he had leaning on his shoulder, and he shouted out, "Boys, I guess I'll scoop this chap." And then he ran up to that dwarf, and he swung a mighty swing, and his shovel just passed through the figure like there was nothing even there. And I guess that must have scared McNulty and the other workers pretty bad, because off they ran down the road, ready to tell everybody about the ghost dwarf that they had just encountered. But I guess, apparently, curiosity got the better of fear, because the very next night, there they were again, out on the road, McNulty and the gang, determined to catch another glimpse of that mysterious, short little magical figure. And wouldn't you know it, they found him. There he was again, the very same little dwarf, just standing there on the road. And McNulty, again, the second he saw the little man, he got his shovel in his hand, and he's seeing red, and he's swinging for the fences, and he's looking to knock that little creep silly, but again, the shovel passes right on through the dwarf. This time, the dwarf splits in two, though, and he floats up very high up into the air and evaporates into nothing. Gone in an instant. Pretty spooky, huh? Now, what I'm sure you're thinking here is, why would I ever want a 3-foot dwarf playing center on my professional basketball team? And you're right. I'm actually not going to have the North Haven Ghost Dwarf play center on my team. I'm going to have him play shooting guard, because, that phasing ability and the fact that he can float way up into the air, that probably is pretty useful. But I've got somebody else in mind for center. Owen McNulty, the insane goddamn Irishman who's willing to just try and take the head off of random people that he sees in the middle of the road. Because think about it, right? Like, who is the real cryptid here? Like, who would you really be more scared to run into in the middle of the night? Like, a harmless little magic dwarf that literally never tried to hurt anybody in the whole story? Or the big hulking psychopath dude with a hair trigger who's trying to kill people with a shovel the second he sees them? Like that dwarf did literally nothing to McNulty. He's just standing there on the road. And, like, for all McNulty knew, that was just like a regular non-magical short guy or a child. But nope, doesn't matter. To McNulty, he's going to go scoop that chap, and that's final. So I guarantee you, the opposing team is going to be shaking in their boots when they know that they got good old Owen McNulty waiting for him down in the paint. Like, I smell Defensive Player of the Year trophy looming already. Okay, so before we finish out the starting lineup, I'm thinking we should flesh out the bench a bit. Like, I'm thinking I want the Burlington, Connecticut Green Lady as my sixth man for sure. According to old legend, the Green Lady used to be a pretty normal woman living in Burlington, Connecticut that unfortunately one day drowned in a swamp. And afterwards, her body was buried in a nearby cemetery, and nowadays she haunts the soul of anyone that dares to come and disrespect her grave. Which, admittedly, is a kind of a generic story for a ghost legend, right? Well, there is actually one specific little quality to the Green Lady legend that I think is going to make her pretty valuable. See, apparently, if you walk into the Green Lady's cemetery with long, uncut fingernails, then for whatever reason, that gives her the power to possess you. Now, I have no idea where that part of the story came from, but it's definitely going to be pretty useful on the basketball court, right? Like, any opposing players walk out onto the wood with some unclipped nails, and then boom, all of a sudden, I'm laughing because I'm playing a game of 6-on-4, right? Just like that. Okay, so this next one kind of pisses me off. So I heard about this wild man that was supposedly running around over in Truro, Massachusetts, right? Like some kind of savage, half-naked man beast that a bunch of local kids kept seeing skulking around like this old empty house that a local woman was trying to sell, right? And so I was all over that. A big monster man, that sounds totally perfect for my basketball team. So I snatched him up and I signed him to a lucrative guaranteed contract. And then I promptly discovered that the Truro wild man was just a Portuguese guy that wanted to buy the house. Just a half-naked, hairy dude climbing into the house window because he wanted to get a good look at the property before he bought it. Like, oh, come on, man. Like, what the hell? What are you doing looking at real estate with no shirt on, guy? Like, I just wasted a whole bunch of money on a fake cryptid. So that dude has got to come off the bench. Like, there's no way I can start him. And to close out my bench, I'm going to take the Glastonbury Glowacus, a big, scary-looking beast that was spotted around Glastonbury, Connecticut by a few different people back during the 1930s. And I would start the Glowacus. He does have a lot of upside, but I sure did find a lot of newspaper advertisements offering rewards to anyone that could catch the Glowacus. You know, offering to buy the Glowacus carcass so that they could make a coat out of its pelt, and trying to make Glowacus steaks. And I just cannot build a team around a player that might end up getting shot dead before the whistle even blows. So the Glowacus has got to come off the bench, unfortunately. Although I do like that this local oil company is trying to sell gasoline by saying that you should come buy some gas so you can make a quick getaway from the Glowacus. Like, that's good publicity. But all right, I think it's just about time that we close out this video. So I better figure out who I want to play power forward on my team, right? And I know right off the bat that I want somebody with some constitution, you know, a big guy who isn't going to falter in the face of another tough player, like someone who isn't scared to be themselves, someone confident and comfortable, like no quit in their body, a real go-getter. So I'm going to go with the Connecticut River Monster. And you'll see why in just a minute. You see, way back in 1886, a couple of guys were crossing the Connecticut River near Middletown, Connecticut, when a big, giant sea serpent-looking thing just flipped them right out of their boat. The guys looked up and saw that this beast had a 10-foot-long neck and a head as big as a flour barrel, and it was pretty obvious that this was something rare, something monstrous. So they swam on ashore and they ran to the nearest town and they called for help. And before long, they had a big old group of people ready to run back down to the riverbank and look for the sea serpent. And you know, this is the point where I knew I wanted the river monster on my team. See, you know how in most monster sighting stories, the person who saw the monster usually runs to go get some people to see what they saw, and by the time the new people get there, the monster has just vanished. You know, like come on guys, I just saw Bigfoot over here, and then of course everybody goes and Bigfoot isn't there anymore. Well, in this story, the two guys get basically the entire town to run back down to the riverbank, and the river monster is still just right there. Like he's not bashful at all. He's still just right in the exact same spot where the two men first encountered him. Like a bajillion people all see the monster at once. There's no hiding. There's no sneaking around. Like that's the kind of guts that I want on my team. So thank you for watching. And if you excuse me, I got some plays to go draw up.